Yes, hello everybody. I hope you're doing well this morning. I can't tell just yet how many people are on. If you're on already, please let me know by saying hello in the chat room. And I'll wait a minute or so. It's 12:02. I'll wait a minute or so until I see how people are coming in. Hello, Claribel. We'll wait just a minute. Yes, hello. Have you see down there it says Dr. Nilka Aviles? Obviously, I'm not Dr. Nilka Aviles. Dr. Aviles had a medical emergency that she's going to take care of. I'll be doing this presentation instead. Hopefully I can do this justice. She's a very good advocate for the Valued Youth Program, and I'll try to do it justice. So I'll go ahead and share some of my screen in just a second, so you can see what I'd like to present on. And I'll explain as I'm going along what the VYP is. And I'll turn off my camera so you can see this particular flyer. So I'll explain to you what the Valued Youth Program is. So in the late 80s, we started seeing that there was a huge problem in dropout behaviors across the country. In Texas, what IDRA did was conduct the first statewide study as to what the actual numbers were with dropout behaviors, and what we found that there was basically 40% of students were dropping out at any given time. This was in 1986. This was an unacceptable number. And we started seeing that no matter when we looked at students of color, Latino students, it was around the 45% that were dropping out. Similar numbers for African American students, and yet it is a gap between both of those groups and white students. So we started to brainstorm ideas as to how we could address this problem. One of the things that we knew that was not working was just your average run-of-the-mill drop kind of credit recovery sort of GED programs to try to bring students back. So that didn't work. And we also knew that there was a certain period, a transition period, where it was very, very important, and where kids were dropping out and that transition period tended to be around ninth grade. This led us to an asset-based practice where we figured out ways to address this issue. So the way we came about this issue was different than others, where when others basically tried to fix a student and tell them, you have to, you need to stay in school, you have to do this. And when we realized at very early on that this was not the way to go, that what we needed to do was basically look at how these students were treated, what responsibilities they were given, what attitudes were being put upon them, how they were being seen. How was your African American student being seen as he walked into a school? How was your Latinx student seen as he walked into a school? And what we were saying is that they were already being seen as at-risk students, but they were already being given a label, and that this label was very much detrimental to not just the way their own self-image, but the way that they were that the school saw them, and the way that the school gave them any sort of the way the school gave them work, what the school expectations of them were like. And we thought, rather than do the typical remediation approach or the character education approach, for that matter, or the kind of very deficit sort of boot camp mentality of we're going to have to fix you sort of thing, we decided to do something different. The program that we started creating back then was where we put students in at-risk situations, not an at-risk student because that basically already pigeonholes them and gives them that label, but a student in an at-risk situation, and a student in an at-risk situation in 8th grade, and have them become leaders on their campus. And the way that they become leaders on their campus is the way that we chose to do this is by having them be tutors of first grade students, first grade students. And this idea of having them become leaders as tutors to first grade students was first seen like people didn't understand it. Why are you doing this? You're putting kids who may already have learning situations themselves, and you're giving them this responsibility to teach younger ones. And we said that's exactly the point. We need to give that kind of leadership. We need to give that kind of confidence in those students that they can do this, and that we will provide the supports to show them how they can do this. And so what the program does is it puts students in that position where they go and tutor students every day. 4 days out of 5. On Fridays, they go have their own leadership sort of day where they talk about their experiences. But they go 4 days out of 5 to basically tutor the little ones. This has had over 30 years has had some incredible results. While they're in the program, and as they're being treated in this way, as they're being seen as leaders on campus, as they're being seen as leaders both in the elementary school and in their middle school, their attendance issues completely plummet. They're no longer missing school the way they would miss school before. Their behavior issues are no longer a problem. Their academics go up. All of those 3 indicators go up because they are seen in a different light. And I don't like to think of this as they've been given sort of a vaccine that they can, that's pumped them up full of motivation. No, we, the school, we, the institution there, have done something different. We speak to them differently because of this. We talk to them differently. We give them this experience of leadership, this experience of believing in them, that is very important. And we've completely, it has changed people all across the country. Now, this program that has gone on for 30-something years has also been implemented in Brazil in over 45 schools. At one time, it was implemented in England and in Puerto Rico as well. So we've had this happen almost across the world, and we each time bringing great success. Again, because it completely changes how people think of students. And what this flyer that I'm showing you right there is that we now need this sort of program more than ever to reconnect with students. It's this way. It is our flagship program that also kind of encompasses everything we believe is an asset-based practice. That you don't just try to fix a student. That you don't do all those things. That this is basically how we take students who are not seen by either the school or even society at large as being contributors, and giving them the opportunity to contribute at this stage, and it completely turns things around. And when I say it, I don't want to say that it turns a student around, because I think what I believe is that what happens is the school has turned things around themselves, and now the students react differently and accordingly. This has gone on for a while, and I cannot tell you how rewarding this work is. Dr. Aviles was the one that's going to be giving this presentation, and she absolutely believes in this program for years. She's amazing at it, and it's something that I wish more schools would do. And not just this program, but the whole this is at the heart of what an asset-based practice can look like. By giving students who are not seen as those students who can achieve on those levels, and giving them the opportunity to do so, it's a very powerful testament to what happens when we, as educational institutions, change, and that is powerful. Now, and when I say that it's the basis for a lot of the way we do things, you can see that in some of our other programs that we're working on. Right now we have a program called Vision Coders that takes the seed and this idea here and does something very similar. In Vision Coders, what we're doing is we're taking students, again, in at-risk situations, and asking them to learn how to code games, educational games for the young set, for the kinder through first graders. This is a program we're developing right now, and it's getting a lot of attention because it's built on the same idea that all of our students can do this. What we've done in the Vision Coders is taken the idea here and basically said that this notion that you have to change the dynamic, you have to change that discourse with our students in very practical ways, will broaden STEM participation. So that was the outcome in that one. The outcome in this one was in the Valued Youth Program, Valued Youth Partnership, was to basically bridge that school gap that was so, and school disconnectedness that has occurred for so along with our students. I'm very passionate about this idea and about how this is one example of the way asset-based practices work. Yesterday, Dr. Khalifa was very adamant and very succinctly talked about communities, and the way that communities that aren't necessarily involved and that haven't been seen as the communities that should be involved or should be at the heart of any of this equity work. IDRA has been doing that through some of the Education Cafe work, where it's basically the same idea. Those communities that are not seen as the communities that can contribute, those families that they're seen as not families that can contribute, are put at the center of that. So if you have a chance to view the recording of that, the Education Cafe, please do that. But I think all of this, the basis for the way we do this, this educational practice, started here with the Valued Youth Program, where we took and changed the discourse. We changed the discussion and said, no, the kids that you don't think can make it, can do it, can do this, can be leaders on your campus, can be leaders forever. And it's all up to you in the way you're willing to change the way you do things, the way you support them, the way you expect things of them. And this is one example of that. And if you have any questions, if you go ahead and try to come on and let's see if you'd like to just say something. I think in some of these you're able to turn on your camera to say something if you want to speak. See, and let me check right now while we're on this, and I'll give you some of the numbers about this in just a minute. I know we have 8 people here, so y'all would like to come on board and share. I'll stop sharing the stuff over here, and I can go back here. A question? Any questions? Okay, no questions yet. So I'll let you know what's happened so far with with the Valued Youth Program. If we're to get down into the research-based piece of this, every year we have an evaluation for the program for each site. Everywhere where there's a site, we do an evaluation of it, and the evaluation consists basically of a pre and a post look at their academic work, at their attendance, at their discipline, any sort of discipline referrals, and then we do monthly journals. They do monthly journals with us as well, and this is all done online, so they're able to do that. It's Jasmine Ferguson said, I was curious about how this program was implemented in schools. Do you all identify schools to partner with, or they come to you? Okay, I'll get to that in just a second. So, and then what happens? We train one teacher on campus, where that is basically the teacher coordinator, and that teacher coordinator basically is able to guide the students throughout the year. They're the ones that are responsible for the implementation. We come in and train, and we come in and help with that implementation throughout the year. So that's part of what we do in the implementation of this. We also have leadership days at the end of the year, where we try to help people take the kids to a nearby college. We help with setting up featured guests to come in, any sort of professionals to come in. We have also a mid-year, kind of a mid-year evaluation, where we come in and show what the numbers are looking like, but then the final evaluation that's presented to a board or to your principal. So how these partnerships happen. Now, there have been some situations where we're able to provide some assistance through the Equity Assistance Center, but those have been kind of rare. This is one of IDRA's contracted services. If you'd like to hear more about the specifics of those contracted services, they usually come to us. We have a lot of commercial material on this, marketing material, that we can send to you if you're interested in it. If you could send us your email, we can send you the direct information about those flyers. And also, actually, in the handouts, you'll see the impact flyer, and you have a EX South brochure. But if you'd like more information about how we're able to provide this at your campus, send us your email, and we can call you, because there are some circumstances. There's been some rare circumstances where we're able to do it as an Equity Assistance Center, but there's most of them have been through a contract. Okay, so the numbers behind the Valued Youth Program. So far, we've implemented this project, like I said, across the South, Southwest, New York, Detroit, Chicago, California. I think the only place that we really have not implemented the program has been in the Northwest. That's about the only place that it hasn't been implemented. We've implemented it in Oklahoma and Arkansas over the years. It's been all over the place. And usually, what happens with the program is people. We've trained the people so well in this that they continue to do this themselves in different ways, or sometimes there's change in leadership and they want us to go in and do something slightly different. But wherever we go with this, there's always a big impact. And right now, we've just recently been receiving more questions about this, because districts are already seeing spots where they're having a difficult time reconnecting with their students. And at this point, where students have been out of school for so long, it's like getting to know each other again. And that's something that's in some circumstances where there's students of color, students who have been in at-risk situations, any sort of behaviors that they've had that are problematic at the school, and the school hasn't been able to know how to deal with this. I think this program can help the students have higher sense of purpose as to why they're there. The past year has been very difficult for our students, and I think having them have that higher sense of purpose is going to really help them be there. This is I was very happy this morning when Dr. Nagorski talked about the idea of socio-emotional learning and how there's sometimes some issues with SELs, with growth mindset, with grit, and that's something we've been saying. We wrote about the minute that the first grit articles came out. We wrote several articles about that because we saw that there were some real serious problems. We immediately saw that this was going to lead to a certain kind of character education, which would just be a curriculum of how to be gritty or how to be resilient. And we saw this as both slightly bit insulting and very condescending to our students who are resilient already because they already have to deal with so much. And it's really not the sort of socio-emotional learning and socio-emotional experiences that we need to be providing on campuses. So this particular, the Valued Youth Program, and the way we do this is experiential. Rather than sit and tell students through some sort of character education, or even through the growth mindset, interventions. Growth mindset interventions, as you may have seen, are very often say things like, "Oh, we're able to." If you just see, they basically tell students, "Oh, you can do this. You'll fail a little. You may fail a little at first, but you can do this." They tell them this. It's curriculum that just tells them this. What we try to do here is basically have students experience leadership in all the ways, all the things that means. Whether there may be challenges that they have to overcome, they're experiencing this and experiencing how they can come back from any challenge for example, in their tutoring of students. And we've seen that for 30 years. We have in our journals, we've seen how the students come back and say, "But this was a bad week because students weren't listening to me. How did our teachers do this?" And then they come back the next month and tell us everything. All I had to do was change things up a bit, and now they're listening to me. So that's just a very simple example of how powerful it is to put the student in the driver's seat that way. And having experienced it, rather than just tell them, "Oh, your brain is plastic, you'll be able to grow." There's nothing wrong with that idea of growth mindset. It's a good idea, but the thing is that it's much more powerful if they experience it. And this is the kind of SEL that I think our students need, the kind of socio-emotional learning our students need, something where they can experience those kind of successes firsthand. Let me see if there's no questions. Let's see, any other questions right now? Not yet? Okay. I'm going to give everybody, the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to, it's about to be 12:20, it's 12:26 over here. So I'm going to give everybody I think almost everybody that came in heard this part of the speech. So I'm going to have everybody, if you need to take a bio break, we'll come back in 5 minutes and I'll go through it again, because this is supposed to be kind of like an exhibitor's table where people come in and ask questions, or where we go ahead and do our presentation about this. So if you just go ahead and take a 5-minute bio break, and I'll be right back. Thank you. For those of you that just came on, we're taking a quick 5-minute bio break. We will be right back. Hello, I'm back. Hope everybody's doing well. See if you can see me okay. All right. So, again, my name is Hector Bojorquez. I'm doing this presentation on the Valued Youth Program. Dr. Nika Aviles would normally be doing this presentation, but she is not able to. She had a medical emergency. So I would like to let you know about the Valued Youth Program. The IDRA Valued Youth Program started out as a dropout prevention program in the 80s. What happened in the late 80s, IDRA did some research concerning dropout behaviors in Texas. There was a lot of concern that there was not any sort of good data about how many students were dropping out. So IDRA's first dropout study happened in 1986, and what we found was there was 45% of students that were dropping out. The majority of those were African American and Latinx students. This was a wake-up call across Texas and later on across the nation as to the issues with what even became known as dropout factories. And IDRA knew from very early on that dropout behaviors were basically very much the result of how schools were treating kids, or how schools were designed for attrition. for dropout behaviors, that students that didn't meet certain qualifications by a certain time period, or that acted in certain ways, were basically going to drop out at some point. Even the way, if you look at the way our traditional school systems have been built, we have a lot, give lots of one-on-one education to our kids, then you have less middle schools. And what is one of the things that we tell middle school kids a lot? You're not going to be babied here the way you were babied in elementary school. By the time they went to high school, nobody's going to hold your hand. By the time they get in high school, a lot of the kids have dropped out. So the system itself was almost built like that sort of sieve, like a sieve, where kids were dropping out by the end at certain transition periods. And we saw that the biggest transition period was that 8th grade period, that where students were exhibiting dropout behaviors, that by 9th grade they were dropping out. So IDRA decided to create a program to address some of those dropout behaviors. And it was more to address the way the educational institute, the schools, were reacting to them. Basically, what we decided that we were going to take students in at-risk situations, these students who were seen as being potential time bombs of dropping out, and put them in positions of leadership. And that by putting them in positions of leadership, the results would be different. And the position of leadership that we decided to include in this program, in this particular program, was to have them as cross-age tutors. So these 8th grade students who exhibited any number of at-risk behaviors, anything from having scored less than were a year behind in reading, have not passed a standardized test, had excessive absences, had excessive discipline, referrals, any of those, we would put them as leaders on campus and having them tutor small children. Some initial reactions that we had at the time were, how is that going to work? How are you going to put these kids who they themselves may not have the capacity to do this, and have them be responsible for these young kids? And we would say, well, that's the whole point, that we give them the support to do that, they will rise to that challenge. And not just that, because they're being seen as leaders on their own campus, they're going to change as well. And that was our hypothesis, and our hypothesis worked very quickly. We saw immediately that these kids that were going daily to go and tutor these young kids themselves suddenly started acting differently because they were being treated differently. They were being treated as leaders and giving this leadership responsibility. They themselves had all sorts of differences in their behaviors. Their attendance rates skyrocketed. They were suddenly going to school some more. Their discipline referrals plummeted. Their academic scores increased across the board. Just those 3 indicators, we saw them as increasing. And what we noticed, that the people who were around them suddenly had to change themselves and would say things to us like, who is this student? Who is this kid? This was not the kid at the beginning who I knew at the beginning, or who I've known who I've seen in the halls for 3 years. And that is the response we always get from the professionals, because we tell them it's that now you've given them a different position of leadership. You've given them a certain respect, that now they themselves are rising to that challenge. This is at the heart of many asset-based practices that we see are important, because you're taking kids, students of color, who the system unfortunately has been gamed against them, and you're making them leaders, and you're saying you are worthy of all of this respect and responsibility. And they take that, and they take it, and they go with it. It is addressing these issues in a very practical way that people can take back and do. We do this through this particular program. We've had it for 30-something years. And I say 30-something years because every year that I present about it, I just like to add another year. Soon, what's been very, very interesting about this is that we've had it all up and down the Southwest, all up in California, Arizona, New Mexico, obviously throughout Texas. We've had it throughout the Southwest around many times. I think that we've had it in New York, Detroit, Illinois, and Chicago. I think we've had it in Oklahoma, and at one point, I think in Arkansas. The only place that I don't think we've had it has been in the Northwest. It has been a success all throughout those places. We've also had it for 10 years in Brazil, in 45 schools in Brazil. It was one of the most important things that we did to help students in Brazil and to help change the way the schools in Brazil saw their kids. As you know, the situations in Brazil can be dire, and the responses we got from students and schools and the schools there were just phenomenal. So this program works on many different levels. I don't like it when people refer to it as it transforms a student. No, it transforms a school so the student can then flourish. And that's the way we need to think about these things whenever we think about any of these asset-based practices. I would invite you to, we implement this program 99% of the time through a contract. We have had circumstances where we're able to provide this program through the Equity Assistance Center, but most of the time this is provided through a contract. I invite you, though, to look at all of our materials concerning this program so you can see what's going on. Also, right now, I'm very concerned right now that so many of our students are coming back, and the kind of disconnection that we had in the past and that we've had even more now because of COVID-19 is going to increase this year because students are coming back and we're basically new to each other. And whatever frail sort of relationships we had are going to be even more frail, and we're going to see a lot of issues. Both schools and teachers who have been very isolated themselves, and the students have been isolated, are going to have may have difficulties. And I encourage you to look at this as one of those ways of looking at socio-emotional interventions that can work. And look here, I know that the ESSER monies are giving out quite a bit of funding for socio-emotional learning. I ask you to judge the socio-emotional learning in a certain way. Is it character education that is just telling our kids, do better, be better, and here are the ways to do that? Be mindful, be more, understand mindfulness, and just do that? Or are they giving them experiences on how to do that? And we feel that too often some of the interventions behind grit or even growth mindset are basically lessons in telling people you can learn. You are just telling kids you can learn. Your brain is plastic. You will fail, or and failing is okay. But your brain is plastic and can learn. And those are fine lessons to say. But the thing is, if a kid doesn't experience these things in an environment where they're safe, they're not gonna believe it. So what we do in the Valued Youth program, it's experiential SEL learning. If you look at it, we're giving them a set of circumstances where they can basically be leaders and experience all of the challenges of leadership. And if they fail somehow, they can see how they can go back and succeed. We ask you that when you're looking at spending that money, that you really think about what you're spending it on. If it's just kind of extra counseling where you're telling kids that way, or it's a curriculum that you're telling kids that they're going to be better, they're going to do better. See how if in circumstances where you have the resources to spend differently, you take a look at something like the Valued Youth program. Now, the specifics of how this program is run is a campus or a set of campuses in a district basically will choose a teacher coordinator on each campus. And the teacher coordinator on each campus will have one classroom period in which those 8th grade students will attend. And then 4 days out of the week, they go to the nearby junior elementary school to do the tutoring. And then on Fridays, they come back and basically debrief as to how the week's gone. And during that time period, they also go on and do some online journaling. That's our evaluation, and what is our online evaluation tool. They also fill out some surveys, but most of the time they sit and debrief themselves on how their week went. And the reason I tell you that we're able to trace the success and what's going on with students is because we have that online journaling every month where students tell us, this was a weird bad month because they weren't listening to me, and yet the next month they tell us, I got them to listen to me, my students to listen to me because the following happened. So it's an experience in leadership that they can then feel that this whole idea of growth mindset, for example, where it's not just they're being told that they're good and that their brains are plastic and they can change. This is an experience, and it's a year-long experience. And I repeat again that the most important thing here is that students aren't just transformed, because that language is always a bit bothersome to me. It's that we as educators change the way we treat our students in that circumstance, and they feel that. We've gotten so many responses from even parents who say, "Who is this student? They're completely different now." Because of this change, of this responsibility. So I'd like to open it up to people who are in the chat. If you have any questions, I'll give you a minute to write some questions down. I know we still have quite a bit of people in here. Yes, we still have about 11 folks. So if you have any questions. Okay. Let me see if any questions. No questions? Good. So then I'm going to go ahead and show you some of the impacts and some of the other details about the program. So here, and you'll see, let me take off my computer so you can see this PDF fully. So here you'll see some of the impacts. 98% of the students stay in school. There is strengthening of academic skills. And here they build socio-emotional skills and self-esteem, increase attendance, and reduce discipline rates. I mentioned all these things, but I want to just make sure you understand that here, building socio-emotional skills and self-esteem, build socio-emotional skills. There's a difference between learning about socio-emotional skills and building socio-emotional skills, and that's what is important about this program. That in too many other programs that try to attain similar outcomes, that they learn about socio-emotional skills, and here we're really trying to have them build the socio-emotional skills through an action, through this activity where they're put in this leadership situation. Here's some of the students that we've had those students were in Atlanta. Those students they were in San Antonio. Like I said, this has been all over the country. But again, I wanted to make sure you understood that difference between learning and building. Here are the five instructional strategies that we use here in the program. Cross-age tutoring is what I just described. Tutors tutor for a minimum of 4 hours a week for one class period a day. There is a curriculum behind them focused on self-concept and the tutoring skills and some literacy skills. So we do have a curriculum for them to do that. Here, classes for tutors. We also have the classes for tutors that they meet once a week, as I mentioned. It's usually been on Fridays, but depending if there's any sort of differences on your campuses where that changes, we do it on other days. Now, we also we help to encourage field trips that educational field trips, 2 to 3, that explore career, economic, and cultural opportunities. Also, they are given mentors and role models. Through this mentor and role models, we bring adults who are considered successful in their field and who represent students' ethnic background, and they're invited to participate in the program. At the end of the year, there's student recognition, and students are acknowledged for their efforts and contributions that they make to the tutors. These are these instructional strategies that we have, but we also have support strategies. I mentioned the curriculum. IDRA provides that curriculum, but IDRA also provides this coordination for program monitoring, communication, and support. And what we mean by that is that we come several times throughout the year to help you implement the program, to help you do any corrections that need to happen during the program, to do any extra professional development that needs to happen throughout the program year. So that we're there to help you both on-site and now online. Other is staff enrichment provided by IDRA based on your campus staff needs. We often see that there is some professional development that could help your campus really increase the goals of the program. And we go there and we can provide professional development. This often means anything from understanding how to take these asset-based practices and basically scale them up to the entire campus, not just the kids that are there, to really ways that you can judge those socio-emotional practices that people come and try to sell you all the time. I think Dr. Gorski's hit it right on the nail when he talked about shiny, kind of like the shiny new things that come, interventions that people try to sell as like the latest silver bullet. Grit has been here for about 9 to 10 years, and it's already seeing kind of a decrease because people are saying that it's just not having the kind of outcomes that people think. And anything, Dr. Duckworth, I think was her name, will herself tell you that her notion of grit was taken differently than she had intended it. Regardless of that, whether that was her intent, grit has been taken into very strange places where there's campuses across the country I've seen that try to implement grit grades, grit and resiliency grades, and that just obviously is not a very good idea. There's family engagement. Here in the family engagement piece, what we do is we try to bring in, we come in and help include parents and family and caretakers into the mix. And we provide professional development, technical assistance on how to do that. And here's something that's very important: evaluation. We evaluate the program and your implementation of the program every year. This rarely happens with any sort of interventions that are out there because it's time consuming. We feel that this is an important part of this and have done it for 30 years so that districts can see how these resources are being used and how the students are succeeding in the program. We feel that this is very, very important and provide a very substantial evaluation of the program. The evaluation is based on indicators from the grade level, grades, standardized test scores, attendance rates, discipline referral rates, surveys that we give to the students, surveys that we give to the teachers, and the journals that they take. And we also do focus groups with the students. Those evaluations all those things are part of a final evaluation that we give every year, every time, everywhere where we help to implement this program. This is becoming incredibly more important. I'll say this because anybody who is starting to spend either Title I monies or even some ESSER monies, they're asking for evidence-based practices. And one of the evidence-based practices fall into is there a yearly evaluation, or are there positive evaluations on the intervention? The Valued Youth Program has, like I said, 30 years worth of that, and we give you those evaluations of the year of the implementation on a yearly basis. So it's very it's very powerful in that way. One question here: can students be added to classes for tutors during the year? Yes, that has happened. we've avoided having students come in too late, and that's not because of space issues or anything. It's just, and when I mean too late, I mean like at the end, towards the end of the second semester. I mean, that usually can be a little bit problematic because they don't get the full experience. But through, and that's usually where we will accommodate whatever request comes in, obviously, and it's up to the campus. But if it's that late in the year, like I say, second half of the semester, second half of the second semester, then it's a bit late. But throughout the rest of the year, we've seen students come in and succeed. I'd like to just point to a couple of things here. Some of our outcomes. Our discipline referrals decreased by 14%, and that's an average. There are places where it's decreased as much as 50%, and others where it decreases by around 10%. So this is the average. And on average, they decreased by 14%. Tutor absence decreased by 16%. These for tutor absence to decrease by 16%, that's substantial. That is very substantial, and we're very proud of those numbers. Like I said, we look at them every year, and have been doing so for a long time. One of the connectedness surveys that we use is the Hemingway measure for adolescent connectedness. And this is very important. We find that 61% of VYP tutors have this improved sense of self oriented towards the future. 59% of VYP tutors improve their sense of involvement in caring for their families. 50% of VYP tutors improve their sense of being and at their schoolwork, being productive at their schoolwork. They enjoy school more and feel more successful at school. 66% of VYP tutors improve their reading scores, and 57% their math scores. Those are fairly substantial numbers, and we try very hard to be part of the solution here with the Valued Youth program, with all of the things that you're responsible for. So that gives me the second 30 minutes of this to give you kind of my second presentation of this. Do you have any questions before we move on? I'll give you a minute. Okay, so we'll continue very quickly. Right now it's 12:57. We have no further questions about this, which either means I'm an incredible presenter here, or or you've heard this already a couple of times. But I really wanted to explain again that we believe that too often ideas such as asset-based practices and avoiding deficit behaviors stay too much as an abstraction in our schools. They stay within the confines of professional development sessions. They stay within the confines of the readings that we do, and they don't become an actual practice. And that's regrettable, because we understand it in our hearts, but we have a hard time putting them into practice. The reason that the VYP excites so many people that become involved with it is because they're able to see that those ideas become reality. And they become reality by having us let go, sometimes let go of our ideas of how to build leadership in a student. We very often think that we have to put them through all sorts of leadership courses. We have to do all sorts of things, all sorts of prescriptive curricula to get them to accomplish something. And that's just not the case here. If we take this same idea and implement it in even our pedagogy, say the way we approach project-based learning. We approach project-based learning, and we should approach it in such a way where students don't feel like they have to fill in all the prescriptive sequence of skills in order to finish a project. They learn the skills as they're going along. That in itself is an asset-based practice, because it forces you to relinquish your control and believe that the students can do it. Surely you will be there to facilitate, but it's not the same sort of way as telling a student, you cannot understand any of this unless you follow these 10 lessons and get to this point. That is a kind of difference, and that is a parallel of all asset-based practices. That is what all asset-based practices have in common, I mean. So that I want you to take that away, that idea as you move on. Take that away with you, and make sure you try to implement it. You can call us if you'd like to implement this program, but also if you'd like advice on how to implement these sorts of ideas and other things throughout the year, throughout what you're doing. But also, I'll leave you with this as I'll leave you for your bio break. Like I said, we're about to enter and reconnect with our students and try to refocus and as we're saying, reclaim basically the educational discourse in such a way that we grow. This right now, where we could make or break it depending on how we approach it. If we approach students as you just have missed out on so much, you have that you have to make up for, and you don't even have to say it, it's just in the attitude and how we present things, they're going to feel it like they're not going to be able to get out of that hole, so to speak. So asset-based practices and things like this, like the Valued Youth Program, that kind of cut away with that notion and basically tell students, no, you're going to be able to do this. Here we're giving you higher responsibilities. We're going to support you. Are going to be critical in reconnecting. Now, if you're seeing that your students really are having a very hard time reconnecting, please call us for this particular, so we can help you maybe implement this particular intervention. Right now, I still call it intervention, even though I think that it's really systemic change that we're advocating for. So I leave you with that thought that as we go into this next phase of re-entry, that we do so with that in mind, that we have to that when we reconnect through things like the VYP, through any sort of asset-based practices, that we remember that our students aren't broken, that we have to basically put them in positions of leadership, that we have to have high expectations and very high supports for them in order for us to get over this whole this next bump in the road. And it's 1:02, and I'd like to go ahead and leave you for a bio break. I'm going to come back at 1:07 to finish this out. Thank you. Hello, everybody. I see that we still have folks on. Um, I'm very happy. We're at 110. We're getting close to 110, 120, or where we close down. And I wanted to spend this time basically letting you know that the IDRA Valued Youth Program, like I said, is usually at a cost. That's been the case 99% of the time. We have had some situations where we're able to provide this service through the Equity Assistance Center. If you can give us a call and let us know what you think of that. If you want to do that, please let us drop us a line. There's very specific circumstances that we're able to do that. But as I said, 99% of the time it is at a cost of the district. There's a couple of other things that I did not mention about the project, about the Valued Youth Program. One, it's in order to, if you'd like to basically implement this program, you can use Title I monies. You can also use your ESSER monies right now. One of the things that I did not mention throughout this time period is that students are paid. We encourage campuses to pay students a minimum wage for the time that they teach students. That has been a part of the program that we feel is important. We haven't, there's been circumstances that because of local policies, they're not able to do that. But as long as the campus is able to provide some sort of either remuneration or acknowledgement of the work that is done, because it is work, they are basically working. They are providing support for these younger students, that you make it possible. It's one of the things that we feel makes students feel even more as if this is relevant to their lives. And we've seen situations they either call us up and tell us or write it in their journal, where students are basically have take the money that they earn there and to give it to their parents in order for parents to do everything from buying groceries to provide to pay for their electricity. This has been it's been very emotional for us, because we normally would think that the students are wanting to spend this money for themselves, but very often it's they use this money for other reasons. You can use Title I monies to do this. You can use right now you can use ESSER monies to do this. So we really would appreciate if you take some time in order to review what you're able to spend on that. Let me see if we have any chance. See if there's anything new that's anybody said in the presentation. Nothing yet. Nothing else. So I must have done a great job at presenting this program. What I can see on here is that we have Stephanie Brown and Noreli Saavedra still online. If you have any last-minute questions that I can answer, we've gone into some of the great details about the program, and I'd hate for you to walk away without knowing any other pieces. Is there anything else that you'd like for us to review? Okay, great. I don't see another question. We'd go ahead. It's 11:11, and I think we can go ahead, and since there's folks who are probably going to start going back to the main session, please don't forget to go back to the main session, because we're going to have more presentations for this afternoon. And I'll if you were not able to go through some of the sessions this morning, they will be up for they were recorded, and they'll be up back on the website where you can view them. But we'll also be taking these down at some point so that we can make them available on our website. And since we have everybody's emails, we'll be letting you know when that happens. As soon as we have them in different places. We're going to try to use a lot of these for some professional development, especially all the sessions. Not so much these sessions, but the sessions where we had our speakers. This afternoon, What we are going to have is on our Equity Power breakout sessions, we are going to have authentic family and community engagement and advocacy. That's with Mr. Aurelio Montemayor and Terrence Wilson. Have building equitable learning environments for emergent bilinguals with Dr. Jose Velasquez. We're also going to have Dr. Vanetta West with creating cultures of honor. We will have, and very excited to have Dr. Liliana Saldaña with Mexican American Studies, recentering student identities and well-being. Then we will have a session on the power of student advocacy with Melivia Mujica and Michelle Green. These two are executive interns, and they have a lot of experience in student advocacy. Ms. Mujica has done some incredible work in her campus around this. So thank you so much. We have 7 minutes remaining, and I would like to go ahead and close it out. The Big Marker team, we will go ahead and close this out. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.